Today we're going to be cleaning and servicing a Cool Breeze 16-inch oscillating fan. According to the information tag, this is a deluxe desk fan. There's no model number, but the type is EB24616, and it is style size 16 inches, 120 volts, 60 hertz, only 0.4 amps and 46 watts, which is kind of low power for a 16-inch model. This is a major childhood fan for me. This is one that I've been looking for many years. There was one of these in, I believe it was my 4th grade classroom, which was now almost 20 years ago, which is kind of a weird thing to think about. Never seen one since. Never seen a video of one. Really have never even been able to find as much as even a picture of one. There was just no trace of the existence of the fan anywhere. There does exist a 12-inch model, which there's a couple pictures of. It seems to be more common, but the 16-inch one I could never track down. And in 10 plus years of pretty avidly thrifting and visiting sales and looking at auction sites and so forth, I've never been able to find one. I didn't even find this one. The letter H found this one, and I'm sure he'll watch this and he can type in the comments box more details if he so desires, but from what I can recall when he explained it to me, this was located at a sale that he had gone to, and it wasn't even something that was like set up for sale. It was just something that was buried underneath a table or something, and it was like just thrown on the ground with stuff on top of it, and it didn't even seem like anybody cared about it or had any intention to sell it. And he was able to dig it out and get it. And I know he likes Cool Breeze as well. He likes a lot of the same things that I do. So I'm glad that he was willing to surrender it to me, because I have been looking for this for so long. And it was just going to be one of those things that maybe someday it would just randomly show up somewhere, but I've never seen one anywhere else. And for whatever reason, they're just not common. It could have to do with the quality. These are not particularly the best quality fans. I remember the one in school, and this is going back 20 years. It was already messed up. The bearings were very stiff. Ironically, the bearings are totally free on this one, but the bearings are very stiff, and a lot of times when it would be started up in the morning, it would take several minutes before it actually got going. And like all the other fans in school, it was totally useless. We had a big classroom. It must have been, I don't know, 35 by 35 or more. And this is off in the corner, and it's like, what the heck is that going to do? Maybe one or two students could actually feel it. It did no good. You know, we're sitting there in the summers, and there's no air conditioning in the schools yet, and it's sweltering hot, it's humid, and this is over there doing no good. But it was there, and I remember it very well, and I'm ecstatic to have found one, or, well, I didn't find one. I'm ecstatic to have one that somebody else found is willing to give me, because this is not a common thing you're going to come across. It's otherwise a pretty run-of-the-mill fan. I happen to like Cool Breeze. I like the brand. I like that cheesy 2000 stuff, because that's what I grew up with. Performance-wise, it's okay. It's not in the category of the old Glasgow Galaxy units, but it serves its purpose if you use it in a reasonably sized room. What the heck? Did it break? Oh gosh. I'm hoping that that's not rooted bearings and it's something else is loose. If that's rooted bearings, I don't know how we're going to recover this. That's pretty bad. You know what? It actually is a lot more powerful than I remember it was. That sounds like something's loose to me. You know what? That's actually doing some pretty serious air movement. That's not bad at all. That's a lot stronger than I thought it was. I tested it when he first gave it to me, but that was a while ago. A couple months now. That's actually not too bad. It's not Lasco Galaxy level, but it's respectable for what it is. It's only taken 0.36 amps and 42 watts with a power factor of 1 right on the nose. Which is kind of unusual. Yeah, that's actually pretty strong. You just blew over a piece of cardboard. You know, ironically, I have another 12-inch Cool Breeze. It's kind of similar to this that the letter H also gave me. And that is extremely powerful. That thing actually rivals the Lasco Galaxy translucent blades. Maybe these weren't as cheap fans as I thought they were. Now see, the bearings look like they're in really good condition, so I really wonder what all that noise is. I find it hard to believe bearings this free would make that much noise. Is this balanced? I didn't check. Actually, it is pretty well in balance. It's almost in perfect balance. That's surprising. Well, maybe this is a decent product. Well, there's only one way to find out what all that racket is. That's to tear this thing down and service that motor and clean everything up. Now, this would probably come out looking like new if we also repaint the guard. There is some surface rust on the guard. It's nothing crazy, but it is there. I'm not going to repaint the guard today because it is 11 degrees out, so it's not exactly conductive to doing outside activities today. But there's a blip in time during the winter, which is this week and next week and maybe the week following, where I'm home a lot and using all the Christmas lights, and it will get pretty warm in the living room, and so I have an opportunity for a few weeks to use fans, and then that opportunity goes away until the summer. So I want to get this working better than it is now so I can use it for a couple weeks during the winter here. So it is in pretty bad, the guard's in pretty bad shape. It needs to be repainted. I will repaint it, but just not right now. I think this should clean up really well. The blades have like a coating of grime on them. Everything has a coating of that like kind of grungy basement grime. Pretty bad in some spots though. That's like insect droppings and so forth. I don't feel like this has very many hours on it. It's pretty clean in there. And the cord is the worst part. Look at this. What the heck? This cord is in terrible condition. Well, we'll get it cleaned up. Prongs are pretty corroded. We'll try to clean those up a little bit too. Basic molded plug. Absolutely filthy. get this back on the tripod and we'll begin the teardown. And then we'll go over to the cleaning area, which I cleaned up today, and I got some new products we can use over there. One of which is a complete game changer product, ironically also recommended by the letter H. So this has the clips. This one is frozen. Might need to put a... Oh, you know what? It's like painted shut. That's what it looks like to me. Or maybe it's rusted. Probably both. I need to put a little bit of oil in there. Let's see. I think it's rooted bearings or something's really messed up. It's got a lot of play. I don't know, I almost feel like something's messed up with it. I don't see how it could develop that much play with this amount of hours. It really doesn't seem like this is a high hours unit. I'm going to use the electric screwdriver, which people complain about using the electric screwdriver because it's too loud, and if I do it by hand people complain that I'm taking too long. So I'm just going to do what I feel like because there's going to be complaints either way. I used to have that little mini frying pan I would put the screws in. I know it's still at the old location. I gotta get over there and get it back. Huh, that's a pretty solid motor. It looks very comparable to what's in the Lasco Galaxy fans. You know, I was not expecting that. I was not expecting that at all. You know what? It is rooted bearings. It's actually rooted so bad I can see the space in there. That's bizarre. Well, that really stinks because we're probably never going to be able to get this to run perfectly. We can try different types of oil. Quite frankly, that motor looks to be very standard. I wouldn't be surprised if I could swap it with something else. That looks like a very standard size motor. But let's see what we can do first to make it work. You know, ironically, there's a ton of oil and grease on the oscillation point there, but I guess none of it got into the bearings. There's even oil in the back of the screw. So why are the bearings are so bad then? Very strange. Yeah, it's a perfectly satisfactory looking motor. The windings are tied up nicely. I don't see anything super loose in there. Well, that's kind of not sure. I do see something loose right there. We might want to do some varnishing on this, actually. Looks like just that one spot that has a loose wire. The rest of it seems fine. Yeah, just right up there's one straight wire. And back here is pretty good. Yeah. Let's see if I know where the varnish is. It's probably in the garage if I had to take a guess. Well, the first thing we got to do is we need to sand down the shaft, because we're not going to slide it off when it's all got all that dirt and rust on there. I got some fine sandpaper here. We'll remove this clip. Not with that tool. So I'm going to turn this back on, and we're just going to kind of polish up the shaft with the sandpaper. That time I turned the bar off. Jeez! That sounds like it's coming from both the front and the back. It's got a lot of power to it. It's a decent motor. You know, see, if I apply a pressure to it to keep it up against the bearing, it's much quieter. So unfortunately, this is a bearings problem, and it's pretty severe. Alright, so now we have a nice clean, smooth surface to slide the bearing over. I can't believe how rooted that is. That's terrible. That really stinks. Alright, so we're going to take all the parts over to the cleaning area. We'll clean everything up, and then while it's drying, does that make sense? No, I guess we should do the mortar first, because then if anything drips onto the base, we'll get it as we clean. So scratch that. We'll service the mortar first, and then we'll go back and we'll clean everything afterwards. I'm going to get something to put down on the table, because I feel like this is going to drip oil everywhere. During the break, I also grabbed the varnish. This is the varnish we're going to use. Spray off clear insulating varnish. It is transparent. It is EL600. And we're going to start in the back, discharge the capacitor. Doesn't seem like it's charged. This is metal on the bottom, plastic on the top. That's more than what we usually get. You want to make sure that this piece does not, if it's like this, you don't want this to push down at all, this part, because there's two little spring-loaded balls in there that will come out and fling across the room. You'll never find them and you'll never get them back in place. It's very annoying. So that piece, we're just going to leave that alone. There is a plethora of very fresh and usable grease in there still. That's kind of surprising. This has got to be at least 20 something years old. I would imagine these are a product of the late 90s or early 2000s. Alright, so we're going to... We can detach, it looks like we can detach this whole oscillation box from the motor, which will make this a little bit easier to work with. So we'll go ahead and do that. And we're just going to leave this alone because the grease looks good. There's plenty of it in there. So we'll just push that off to the side and nothing to do with that. There's plenty of oil on the movement surfaces, so that is copacetic. Some excess oil dripping out around here. Clean that off. Okay, so now we're going to open up the motor. Wow, that's excessively tight. There is absolutely no reason for it to be that tight. I almost feel like the screws are going to break. I'm sure they're just made of cheap pot metal. And this is not going into a bolt on the other side, it's just going right into the housing, so we really don't want that to strip out. We have to get longer screws and drill it out and put a bolt on the other side, or a nut rather. So this lead wire here looks like it's going to kind of flex up against this metal part as this oscillates, which doesn't move too much, but that's not ideal. That's actually a similar issue to what exists on the SMC fans and why those were recalled in the late 90s. This is probably not sharp enough to actually cut through. I don't know. Actually, maybe it is in some spots. It's not a super clean, side piece. Alright, so now this should be good to come off. The front is attached to... Oh, this is going to be a potential problem here. Because the windings are going to stay on the front, I think. Which is not really what I want. This is kind of a problem here. So the dilemma is that, well, if this has enough slack we can push this back, but the cord is attached to the windings and it passes through here, but the windings are stuck to the front. So we might have to, well, let's try to pull this through the back. Try to do it like this instead. Okay, there we go. So now that's free. Make sure we don't nick this on the windings here. That would be catastrophic. Keep that out of the way. Push that through. All right. So what is the problem here? I don't see a wear line necessarily on here, and I feel like I would see it with how worn down it would need to be to make that much noise. So I'm guessing what wore out is the actual bearings. I guess that was the cheap part of the aspect of these things. Huh, that's weird. I've never seen something like this before. The bearing appears to just be sitting inside metal, as if like it's just a metal sleeve. Usually these are fit around a bunch of I forget what the material is called, but there's a material that usually you fill with oil. It sits all around in here, and the porous bearings allows the oil to seep through over time with heat. But this does not seem to have that. So I guess that would explain why these fail so fast. It's because they have no source of lubrication, and consequently these bearings are probably dry as can be, even though they were still spinning freely, because there's nothing holding oil against them. And yeah, such be the case. There's zero oil to be had on here anywhere. And that's probably why so much wear transpired over the course of very little time. Well, that's extremely disappointing. This is very poorly designed. So even though the air movement is reasonable, I go back to my original statement of the fact that this is a very poorly made unit. That is extremely disappointing. Well, oh well, that's what we're working with here. Huh. I've really never seen one like this before, where there's nothing to give it oil. Huh. I wonder if that would make it relatively easy to replace these bearings. It almost looks like they would just slide out. I don't really want to try it, because there's no benefit if I determine it slides out. Well, that's great. I just have to put it back in, and it doesn't yield anything. But Just to satisfy my curiosity, does it seem like this would just slide out? Not really. It doesn't seem like that. Well, it doesn't matter because I don't have new ones anyways. Huh. That's really strange. I've never seen one like that before. Well, we'll take the shaft into the garage. We'll polish it up. I'm going to take these thrust washers off of here. We'll polish up the shaft, get this cleaned up as best as we can. Take some of that grease off there so it doesn't get everywhere during the cleanup process. I'll clean this up the best that we can, get it nice and smooth again, good surface on here. We'll clean out the bearings, we'll re-oil everything. The lubricating is not going to last very long because there's nothing holding it in there. But maybe it'll give a couple hours of quiet operation. I don't really know. I don't know what to expect after seeing this now. This is really... And that explains why there's oil everywhere instead of just in the bearings, because it probably all leaked out into here and then slipped down there, and now it's all down over there because there's nothing holding it in the shaft. That is so dumb. What a stupid design. It's not set up to last by any means. Yeah, it's the bearing surface that wore out, not the shaft. I don't feel any change in the surface area there at all. Jeez. It's not as centered as it would be ideal, but I think we can work with it like that. Ah, that's better. Okay, we'll go with it like that. So we're going to use this Simichrome polish from Habituc brand polishing paste, and this should be able to get rid of all those imperfections on the shaft there on both sides. It'll clean all that up and give us a nice smooth surface to work with. The best we can possibly have, the best chance we can have in making this run quiet again. We don't need very much at all, just a little bit will suffice. Probably even that much is good for one side. Gotta get a little more balance than that. Now the shaft is about as clean as it's possibly going to get. Practically has a mirror finish to it now. So let's go back inside, we'll clean off the bearings themselves. And I think what I will do is since normally you would use a non-detergent oil, that's what we go through when we talk about the whole thing with the picture of the fan on the box and whatever. But since we don't have the porous surface in this particular case, which is very unusual, we can use detergent oil and it makes no difference. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some 5W30 oil, which is much thicker than what we usually do, and my hope will be is that the extra thickness of the oil will kind of fill that gap of the wear in the between the shaft and the bearing, and maybe make it run quietly. We'll see. It's worth a shot. This polishing paste was made in Germany. Good quality product. Alright, let's clean everything up here. These things, they don't really move on the shaft. They stay pretty much stationary, so I'm not worried about trying to lubricate inside here. It wouldn't make any difference. Now these things do experience some motion, so we'll clean these up. See, there's all this dried up oil in there, or what's left of it. That's so strange that it doesn't have any oil wicking to it. I don't know what's going on with these things. One of these feels like plastic, and one of these just feels like rubber. I'd be willing to bet that they were both rubber at some point, and then this one has just, from the heat and whatever, turned to plastic. Turned very hard. But I'm not sure. There's a lot of grease from the oscillation apparatus on the other side of this. We don't want that grease going inside the bearing area. These bearings are having enough problems as it is. We don't need oil, or don't need stinking grease in there. What the heck? There's a hole in that bearing. There's a hole in it. This just gets more and more bizarre as time goes on. Pretty clean in there now. Well, the bearings are spotless and the shaft is spotless. We'll add some oil, a little bit thicker oil in there, and that's really all we can do in this case. I suspect it'll run quiet initially, and then most likely after a couple hours it's going to get noisy again, which stinks, but it is what it is. Alright, so before we put the motor back together, this right here is where we need to add some varnish. I like to check over these motors and make sure there's no loose parts of the windings. There's a loose part on the winding right here. That wire moving like that is not good. That will eventually, over time, the vibration can cause the insulation to wear off the wires and you get a burnout. I don't see that anywhere else, so I think that if we just put a little bit of varnish on that one spot will be good. Everywhere else looks fine. Actually seems pretty well put together aside from that one part. So I've got some varnish here, and people are going to get all worked up over the fact that I'm doing this inside, and those are probably accurate pieces of commentary, but I'm just going to just spray this on here real quick. That's all you need. That will fix it. Once that dries, that'll hold that that piece of wire in place, and it will not move around anymore. That's fixed as far as I'm concerned. And if you want to get real technical with it, you know, you should warm up the motor with low voltage wire, you know, low voltage electricity, warm it up, let it cure. Well, it's good enough, at least for this type of application. Alright, so we know that the longer side here went on the front. And the sorter piece went on the back. So now normally I would put 3-in-1 oil or Zoom spout oil in here, but we're going to put some 5W30 in there. Am I going to get that out of there? I guess I could just use a screwdriver to apply it. I don't care if it drips everywhere. I've got the cloth, not the cloth, the tarp down here, the plastic. This is a pellets bag. I use these pellets bags like this all the time. They're great, as opposed to just throwing them out, which is a total waste. This seems like such a bad idea to be putting this oil in here, and normally it is, but in this particular case it might help. Wow, look at how much play there is. That's actually one of the worst instances I've ever seen. That is unbelievable. I still can't believe it got like that with so few hours. I mean, you can usually tell, if the fans have been cleaned or not. If this has been cleaned, it was someone that did it on like, my level of quality or better, because I can't tell. And for just a cheap, run-of-the-mill basic desk fan, I find it hard to believe that somebody would put in that kind of time. I don't feel the play anymore. So either the play magically disappeared, or the oil is working as I thought it would, which unfortunately is likely only going to be a short-term solution. Let's see. Let's put on blade. I should probably secure this oscillation mechanism first. I don't want that to come around and get caught in the blade. That would be catastrophic. So there is a film of oil, I guess you can call it, all around the shaft now, and there's no point adding any more because it's not gonna. There's nothing for it to accumulate to. There's no wick to fill up. How the heck did that happen? This is on the wrong side? What the heck? That's weird. Alright, well, let's see what it sounds like. I think it's going to be quiet. What I don't know is how long will it be quiet for. Unfortunately, I doubt it's going to be a long time, but you never know. Well, I would say that's a huge improvement. That's running pretty quietly. I can hear a little bit of something, but this at least is usable. It was not usable the way it was before. Much better. I really don't. There is some play, but I don't feel as much as I did before. Well, we'll see. Hopefully it lasts a while. Only time will tell. Alright, let's head over to the cleaning area and get this thing cleaned up. Here we are at the cleaning area. It's a little noisy today because the boiler is running because it's 10 degrees out. I just realized that all this here is more oil that was just dripped out of the bearing because nothing holds it in place. Dumb. So we'll do a quick wipe down of this. I have a product here we might use, which is a game-changing product. We'll see if we need it. I'm not going to put the base in the sink because there's the switch and everything. So I'll just wipe it down with some ticker towel first. I think this is going to clean up very easily. Yeah, even just the plain water is taken off most of the contaminants. Yeah, it's going to clean up real easy. Wow, this is going to look like new, especially once the guard is repainted. I used to have a toothbrush over here. I think it fell somewhere, but I can't find it. I'll have to get another one. I could really use it right about now to get in between all the cracks there. Wow, that's excellent. I really need a toothbrush to complete this. I'm going to see if I can go find where it went. This one was in the studio. I don't know if it's the same one that was here or not. It doesn't really matter. In fact, it doesn't matter at all. As long as it gets the job done, which it is. Alright, so now we're going to move on to this miracle product. This is a piece of Melanie's foam, which is like the off-brand version of Mrs. Filthy Magic Eraser, which I always thought was like a joke of a product, but this stuff is absolutely incredible. It's going to take all these marks right off of here with ease. It's unbelievable. And I don't really understand what this is. I don't think that there's any kind of chemical on here or anything. It's like just a material, but it's unbelievable how well it works. I have never used anything else like this. It's unbelievable. Highly recommend this foam, and it's cheap too. You know, I'm not really into like single-use products. In fact, I have a very strong opposition to single-use products. And this isn't really quite a single-use product. You can use this a bunch of times before it becomes too dirty, but it's like 25 cents a piece or something, astronomically cheap. Even this, like the oil here, it took all that oil right off, just a couple of passes. Same thing here, all this brown stuff on the side. Just takes it right off. I'm not even like scrubbing aggressively, it's just very easily taking everything right off. Wish I knew about these things ages ago. A little bit of dirt in the crease here, that's where the toothbrush will come into play. Works wonders for getting little stuff out of crevices like that. Wow, look at that. That's incredible. Looks like new. Except for the cord, but we'll get to that. I'm not sure what we're going to do with that cord. That's going to take some time to clean that up. You know, I had gotten some, I don't normally use gloves, but my hands are cracked from the stupid cold weather. The heat's been on all the time. I want to keep getting my hands wet and drying them off because it makes that problem worse. So I have some dishwashing gloves here I'm going to put on for a minute. This, I guess we can use the melamine foam for this as well. Probably don't really need to, but why not? It works great. Look at that. Holy cow. And this is no cleaners, nothing. Wow. This is getting it on video? Yeah. I'm having a hard time figuring out where to put the camera in this new area here. I've only used it a couple of times, so I haven't mastered the camera work over here yet. But now that we have the working dishwasher, we're going to be using this area a lot more. A lot of cleaning service projects coming up. And the dirt comes out of this real easy too. And it's like perfectly good again. It's just such an amazing product. I don't understand why this isn't like all over the place, like a world's #1 bestseller, because it's fantastic. Even in here is pretty clean, which is why I believe this is low hours. Because even the people, on the rare chance that someone does clean a fan, usually does not get inside here and do a really thorough job. And it's possible, but it's just highly, highly unlikely. A lot of fuel the last couple of days with this cold weather. A lot of wood, a lot of electricity, and a lot of oil. All three are running. Even I'm struggling to get this fully clean on the inside here. Well, not struggling, but it's taking more effort than I think anybody else would bother to put into it. Wow, that's just absolutely pristine. And there's zero scratching too. Sometimes I notice with the toothbrush, although it's a very soft bristle brush, it can scratch surfaces like this very, very lightly. And this does not at all. So I think I'm not going to use the toothbrush for this type of stuff anymore. Actually, I'd started using that paintbrush a little bit softer, but the melamine foam is by far the best option all the way around. By far. Look at that. Unbelievable. Now this melamine foam is starting to shred a little bit. It's really only good for one or two uses, but it's so cheap it's kind of hard to, unless this is like some kind of environmentally toxic material, then it's a different story. But as long as this is somewhat biodegradable and harmless, for 25 cents I can live with it for a project. Even if it took 2 or 3, it makes the stuff look like new. It's so worth using. But since this has a, this sink is a pump-up sink and it's not a macerator pump, so I don't want that going down the drain. Wow, that's incredible. I've cleaned a lot of things with the melamine foam since I got it, and every time it is just as incredible. Wow. It's unreal. It's like a brand new part. Unbelievable. Incredible. Absolutely incredible.
does need to be repainted. I thought that was rust. It sure looked like rust to me, but either this can clean off surface rust or it's not rust. Oh wow, this is good. This is going to come out looking perfect. Every aspect of this is going to just be absolutely pristine when we're done with this. This makes some cool squeaking noises too. There's a few spots of surface rust, but most of it cleaned up. I don't really think it's even necessary to repaint it anymore. Well, the front's not cleaning up quite as good as the back did. I think it's got more rust pitting on it. But it's still cleaning up pretty good for what it looked like. This does not work as well. I don't know where all that hair came from. I don't want that hair going into the drain here. It's kind of a weird setup. Now this is going to need a repaint. This is kind of what I was expecting on the back card. It's not terrible, but you can definitely see the surface rust on there. This is definitely taking some of the rust off, though. I'm really impressed with how powerful this is. Alright, that's exceptional. Lastly, we got to deal with that cord. Hopefully the melamine foam will clean up that cord. It probably will. Of course it does. Cleans it perfectly. This cord looks like it sat in a sewage flood. Alright, let's go back to the studio and reassemble. Well, that will certainly make a much better electrical connection. Alright, let's reassemble this thing. I can't wait to see the final product. Wow, what a difference.
Well, let's see, and perhaps more importantly hear it run and see what that's like. That's dramatic. What a huge difference. I don't know how long it's going to stay like this. I have a feeling it's eventually going to develop that same noise again. But at least for a little while, it should be good. That's actually pretty strong. That's not bad at all for 0.36 amps. Well, bend in the guard there, straighten that out. It looks pretty much new. And the balance is pretty reasonable too. It's not perfect, but it's reasonable. And the camera is plugged into a string of Christmas lights. Well, that came out great. I really enjoyed this project, and it's super neat to see this thing again after all these years.